So today on the channel, we're going to be replacing this. This is the factory Ender 3 V2 hot end shroud, and it has seen better days. It's a little bit worn on the outside, a little bit worn on the inside, and today we're going to replace it with something a bit fresher and a bit more stylish. Hey Internet, Al here from One Man Many Plans, and welcome to facelift time in the workshop for my Ender 3 V2. A bit of plastic surgery, if you will, although technically it's PLA surgery because that's what I'm printing on. But long story short, my factory shroud has seen better days. It's got bits of super glue in it. The mounts for the original fans have broken over time. They've got brittle, and I've done all sorts of hack kind of things just to hold it all together, with the thought that as soon as it's back up and working properly, and it hasn't been working properly for a while, one of the first things I was going to do was print a new shroud. Now I'm going to show you how bad it got into the old shroud when I take it off in just a sec, but you may have spotted from the opening video that there's actually a screw end sticking out, and that is temporarily holding in some fans at the moment. It got to that point where I was super gluing them in there. I don't suggest you do this because there is every chance, and I have done this myself, where glue can seep into a fan unit and completely stuff it up. So as a consequence, I've had to buy a new fan for it. So yeah, try not to glue it in if you can. When I was repairing this recently, I went, I want the fan to hold just so I can get it up and working and get a benchy and make sure that everything's okay. So that's what I've done. I've just literally drilled a little hole and one screw, tightened it in there, and it's just temporary. But it doesn't look good when you've got a factory end on there, factory shroud, and there's a screw popping out. So I thought, right, one of the first things that I'm going to do is print myself a new shroud. So off I went to Cults 3D, and that's where I found this one. Now this is a Lowk shroud. A Lowk shroud? I don't know how you pronounce it. Maybe it's a Lowky shroud. Very, very easy to find. Project Lowk is the genius behind this, and there's a full body kit that they've actually created for the Ender 3 V2, which is awesome. But I thought, no, just want a shroud. And this is what I've got. It printed in red without any supports. Took a little over 7 hours, so not too bad in the whole scheme of things. And even at 15% infill, it just feels nice and solid and structurally sound, which is awesome. So when I put this together, and we're going to do that later in this video, the hotter end fan is going to go here. The print cooling fan, it has its own little vent on this side here. I'll zoom in there, which is very cool. And it's even got a couple of little holes for screws as well. So one fan's going to be inside with a cover on it. The other fan is going to be on the outside. It's going to be exposed with a couple of little holes, but it's going to look a lot better than the factory unit, I feel, which is just awesome. So this particular one doesn't have a mount for a BL Touch or a CR Touch. There is an option when you download this from Cults 3D for that particular model too. So if you're thinking, oh, can it have a sensor on the side? Yes, it can. That one needs supports to print, but I don't have a sensor on mine, so no supports needed there. Then the great thing is there's a couple of options of covers that go over the top. So once the fan's installed in here, I'm going to pop this on. I've got to clean it up a little bit. I did have to use supports because of the angle that it was on. I do have to clean it up a little bit from the tree supports that I was using because it's not perfectly flat, just the way that it fits into this thing. But because it's a second piece, you can print it in whatever color you like. So I've gone, why not a really garish red gold combo. So once the fan's in there, screw it in there, that goes over the top, and you've got a very futuristic looking hot end shroud. So looking forward to putting this on and seeing how we go. You might be thinking, do you need any particular type of screws? Well, according to the creator, pretty much any screw that fits will do. I'm very, very happy that you don't have to drill in any little holes. So that's awesome, although you might have to widen them depending on the size of the screw that you're using. But let's clean this up. Let's replace the old one. Let's have a look at how bad it got in the old one, and let's get this up and running and see how it looks on my now working Ender 3 V2. So our factory unit is now off, and as you can see, it's a bit of a mess inside. It's a lot of dry glue, some broken holes, and a fresh new screw hole where I screwed in the latest fan temporarily, like I said before. You can buy replacements for this if you need to, and they're readily available both on Amazon and AliExpress. So the good news is that if you break this or step on it, I don't know how you'd step on it, but if it does fall to pieces, you can buy a new one, or of course you can print yourself one, which is exactly what I've done. Just on that too, buying spare parts. If you damage a fan in any of them, like the 3 fans in the Ender 3 V2, it could be the hot end fan, it could be the part cooling fan, or it could be this little actually, that's part cooling fan. It could be the fan underneath the motherboard. They are also readily available, and I actually bought a pack of 3 just in case. So I've got a spare part cooling fan. I'm using the new motherboard fan because the other one, the wire just came out, and they're so tiny and intricate that it was going to be impossible and not worth my time to pull it apart and try to solder it back in again. Plus, the other fan got some glue in it when I tried to glue it in temporarily. Don't do that. The great news is they come in a pack of 3. So there's a whole new set of fans ready to go for this new project. Now, speaking of fans too, one thing I forgot to mention is another option with the Lowk fan shroud is that I've printed out the one for the factory fan, and this is the 10mm version. There is another one with a 20mm depth. So if you're using an aftermarket fan, something a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, there is a Lowk version for this as well, which is very, very handy. So massive shout out to the creator of this for thinking of various options. Like I said, you can print one out with a mount for a BL Touch or a CL Touch. You can print out a stock one like this. There's also a variation on the cover too. You can have it open like this, which I think looks so much better, but there's also ones where there's vents that you can print across. So there's a couple of options too. And of course, depending on what filament you have, it can come in all sorts of colors of whatever you like, really. Whether you want it just stock colors, or you want some gold or some silver or some marble or some galaxy or some rainbow, print away. It's up to you. So I've screwed in the hot end fan. It's ready to go. As I mentioned before, you don't need any particular screws. I've just raided the spare parts bin for a couple that fit. The first one was actually the old screw from the original hot end that was just holding the fan in temporarily. And it doesn't matter what you use, whether it matches your fan or not. This is just purely coincidence that I have some black screws lying around, because of course the cover is going to go over the top of them, and you won't be able to see the screws, just the fan. Just a quick note on fan placement too, if you're wondering which way they're supposed to go. The sticker side blows the air towards the hot end and the bits and pieces here. So when you install it, make sure that the sticker end is blowing air on the inside of this unit, but otherwise that's very, very easy to go. Any screws that you can fit. Usually I use a screwdriver for something like this because I really don't want to break it, but because of the screws that I was using, I actually used a cordless drill. I used it very, very slowly because you don't want any of the insides to crack. But it's there, it's holding on. One thing I didn't realize, I don't know if a lot of people who print this out have the wire on the outside like I've got it, or they have it on the inside looping up there. That would probably be a better suggestion, but the problem is mine's all soldered in. And unless I actually unplug it at the motherboard end, it's a bit of a hassle. I'm just going to keep it like that for now. I'm more than happy for it to sit on the outside. There's plenty of room with the cover on top too, so it's not going to get too crushed there. Although technically you could probably melt a groove in there for that wire if you're really, really worried about it. So that's that fan there. Time to put this one on here. And this one was a bit more of a challenge, the challenge being to find screws small enough. I think this was actually probably computer screws from way back when. Just tiny. So, of course, you might have to, depending on the size screw that you've got, drill a just slightly bigger hole than comes from the actual print itself. But once it's in, it's in. Now, remember that you do need to have it positioned in one particular way. Fan on the outside, because if it's up against the wall, it's not blowing anything. And then the serial number up the top, meaning the vent is down below, and that will push air through here to do the cooling part of the fan. Now, one thing that I've just noticed, just in a bit of a trial fit, you've got this sort of area, and I'm reckoning that's for the this part of the hot end assembly, which is awesome because previously in the old shroud, they were just all bunched up together. Now you can separate that wire, and I'm very, very happy. So let's test fit it and see how it looks all put together. So here is where I've hit my first real snag. For a time, I couldn't get this Lowk hot end shroud to actually sit flush with the backing plate. And it took me forever to work out it's because it needs a bit more of an opening in here. So I've melted some of it away, I filed some of it down, and finally I got to the point where it had clearance for, I even used smaller bolts in there, just in case that was snagging on it. Whatever it was, there was something that just wasn't allowing it to sit flush with it. And so there was a bit of cutting and melting involved. Now, having a quick Google, it seems I'm the only one that's had problems with that. So I don't know whether it's this replacement hot end that I got that's slightly larger than the old one. I didn't actually compare when I threw the old one out. But whatever it is, it was obstructing a proper fit on this. So I've hacked away a bit. I've had to. It's not pretty in there, but with the fan on top, you're not going to see it. It's literally just going to vanish. You may have to modify it depending on your circumstances. Finally, it is on. And I reckon we're all in agreement. Looks so much better than the stock unit. So let's power it on and see how it looks with the fan spinning. So we've got our hot end fan spinning just fine. Part cooling fan on the side spinning just fine. Cold air coming through under here. Fantastic. Game on. We'll give it a bit of a run through, but I'm already stoked at how better the front of this thing now looks. Okay, so it's later in the day. I've just had to go and get the car fixed because it had a screw in the tyre. That's always fun. Finally, a chance to actually test this out and see how it's going. My first concern, and probably the first concern for anyone who's printed this and put it all together, is, geez, isn't that fan shroud going to hit the bottom, hit the base? And it misses it by a hair or two, like a millimetre or two. It's close. And mine's got a little bit of what looks to be either debris or a little bit of print off, but that's it. It's certainly not touching it. The lowest point on this hot end, obviously, is the hot end itself, which is fantastic. And one thing I'm really, really loving about this one is that when I was putting it together with the new SKR, I actually wired in my fans the wrong way. Easy to do if you're me. But I couldn't see it because, you know, you couldn't see through the grill unless you flashed lights, and I didn't think that far ahead. This one, no worries to see if the fan's working. And we're talking both the fans there. So they are going great guns. Everything's holding on nicely. A Barbarian for Hero Quest, something I've been meaning to print for ages, is currently printing, and everything's looking good so far. I did have a slight concern about the heatsink touching the inside of here, but apparently that temperature gets to about 55 degrees, maybe a little bit warmer, but certainly not enough to start melting things inside. So I'm going to keep an eye on this print, but so far so good. And like I said, I'm really enjoying the new design. So we're coming up to an hour on this particular print, and everything is going great guns. There is a Barbarian in there somewhere. Just a lot of support. I didn't think it was going to add so much support to this particular print, but the fact that it's going so well after an hour, not a single hiccup, not a single issue, not a single scrape, nothing, this has been an absolute winner. So Lowk, Tone Lowk, whatever you want to call it, I love it. It looks the goods, and it has been awesome so far. So a massive thank you, and yeah, that's a win.
Face battling barbarians.